Coming up, the global supply chain crisis, surging demand and a shortage of workers leaving store shelves empty. As the holiday shopping season begins, we look at the unique impact and the role Indiana is playing in keeping things moving. Indianapolis-based InCamp says it is on a mission to make the world a better place to live. See how they're doing it through an innovation-based platform. Plus,
I'm Mary Rachel Redmond, behind bars in Tipton County.
That was me a year ago in the 130-year-old Tipton County Slammer, a once dreaded place, now a coveted historic space in need of saving. Will it ever get bailed out? More on this week's Endangered Indiana coming up.
Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gerry Dick. The global supply chain crisis continues to ripple through the economy as companies and consumers clamor for everything from auto parts to asparagus. It is also helping to fuel a historic rise in inflation. What needs to be done to get store shelves stocked for the holidays? And can Indiana, the crossroads of America, play a role in the solution? For some answers, I'm pleased to be joined by Integrated Distribution Services CEO Mark DeFabis. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Your company, a longtime third-party logistics company here in Indiana. You're on the front lines here. Mark, give us an idea. We hear about the supply chain crisis every day, but some examples you're seeing out there of Indiana manufacturers, retailers, and others who are really impacted by this.
Yeah, certainly manufacturers are having a hard time getting component parts, especially if they're coming from overseas. And retailers now trying to get products from overseas in for holiday season. But I think as typical, this is not the first time that supply chains have seen disruptions. So you're seeing many manufacturers and other retailers trying to, how do you overcome those disruptions? And that's usually with alternative means of transportation. It's usually dedicated. So they're either having to fly it in on planes, you're having a dedicated truck to bring it in, or even in some cases, dedicated ocean vessels to bring their containers in. But all that does is really add to inflation because the cost to circumvent from that standpoint is very, very expensive.
Yeah, so if you're a manufacturer, your company here in Indiana, and you're wanting to get a container from the West Coast here, what would be a normal wait time for that to happen versus what we're seeing now because of the supply chain issues?
Yeah, from the West Coast, almost every container has to go through Chicago before it's going to get to Indianapolis. We don't have a direct route. In a typical time, a wait time in Chicago's rail yards to get a container off onto a chassis so it can be transported down south would be about 3 days. Now you're seeing wait times significantly longer than that, and I think it's going to get even worse. Yeah,
and as you look at, Mark, obviously the truck driver shortage, the real issues in that industry that began certainly before the pandemic and before this did, but exacerbated by this now, this truck driver. What can be done, in your view, as an executive in the industry? What would you like to see done to address some of these issues?
Well, really, it's all about velocity. We need to keep product moving in the supply chain. And of course, the vast majority of that moves by truck. Because we're not going to, I think, magically create more truck drivers overnight, we need to look at hours of service. Can those drivers that we currently have work maybe an hour or two longer? Because of all the dwell time that they have. The big thing is the Drive Safe Act, which has been in Congress since early this year, which would allow 18 to 21-year-olds to drive across state lines. I mean, right now they can drive an 18-wheeler from South Bend to Evansville, but they can't go from Evansville into Kentucky, which is a little ridiculous. We need to do some innovative things in the short term like that to really be able to have more velocity within the supply chain.
Yeah, Mark, everyone wants to know, when this is going to end or when it's going to get better. I know you and I were talking off camera before the interview. You don't think that's going to be anytime soon?
No, I think if you look at it, the issues that we have are not going to clear themselves overnight. We're not going to, within the next year, have hundreds, if not thousands, of more truck drivers. We're not going to have hundreds of thousands more trucks. You're not going to have more, thousands and hundreds of thousands of more chassis to pull containers. It's going to be a while before we work out of this. Now, there will be workarounds, and I think we'll continue to see manufacturers and retailers do workarounds for the bottlenecks that we have in the supply chain. But again, it's just going to be more expensive in the long run.
Yeah, Mark, you're a board member at Conexus Indiana, that organization that is very supportive of the advanced manufacturing and logistics industries here. I know Conexus is going to be involved in a listening event next week with members of the Indiana congressional delegation. What do you anticipate that conversation is going to be like? And is there a message or messages that will be delivered to the delegation?
Absolutely. Senator Braun and Senator Young have been gracious enough to host this event as a listening session, so that we will have Indiana-based manufacturers as well as logistics companies to talk about the real-world problems that we're facing with the supply chain, and really present to our delegation practical solutions, both some short-term, some long-term, that we need to start pursuing in order to correct this. Message that we hope to carry, and I think Indiana is well-positioned. Conexus has done some studies already. We're about to complete another one about commodity movement, so we can take care of the bottlenecks and the issues that we have within the state. But the message that we're going to try to communicate to our congressional delegation, it's about velocity. We have to keep things moving in the supply chain.
All right, Mark DeFabis, CEO at Integrated Distribution Services. Mark, some great perspective on this very difficult issue. Mark, thanks very much. I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Well, you may recognize Dr. Jerome Adams as one of the key players during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. He served as the 20th U.S. Surgeon General under President Trump, and he's my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast. Now, rewind to March 2020, a tough time for government and healthcare workers alike, trying to get a handle on the pandemic. Dr. Adams, a former Indiana State Health Commissioner, describes what it was like from inside the White House.
Well, it was crazy. There's no other way I can put it. You know, we were working 16, 18, 20-hour days. We were trying to fly the plane as we were building it, quite frankly.
Much more with Dr. Jerome Adams on the Business and Beyond podcast, his journey from a Maryland farm to Indiana and beyond. To check it out, go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com and click on the subscribe tab. Well, some sad news to pass along this week. A longtime member of the Indianapolis Indians front office, a former general manager, and also a friend of this show, Cal Burleson, has died. The Indians say Burleson passed away from cancer complications. He started with the organization back in 1975 as a ticket manager, worked his way up to the top executive spot. He was named GM in 1998 and held that role through 2014, then served as VP of Baseball and Administrative Affairs, also very active and visible in the community. Cal Burleson was 71. It's time to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegiant, pioneering safety. Well, Indianapolis-based tech company InCamp is on a roll. The company recently raised $12 million in a Series B round, and revenue grew by a whopping 800% in 2020. The company now has more than 60 full-time employees and continues that rapid growth. Pleased to be joined on the show this week by CEO Luke Jacobs to talk more about what is fueling growth. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Gary. It's good to be here.
Hey, before we get into some really cool things happening there at InCamp, give us the business model, environmental health and safety compliance software, right? Give us a thumbnail what the company is all about.
Yeah, happy to. So I think the easiest way to think about it, especially for your average person, is that we function a lot like TurboTax, but for environmental rules scaled up to the enterprise level. So big companies need to track requirements that they have to maintain at a state level, at a federal level for environmental reporting. And then once they actually know what they need to report, they need to track the data and they need to submit the data to the right agencies. We're a software company that really takes an end-to-end approach with that entire process with our customers to work with them to not only establish the facility foundations, but then actually complete final reporting in an ongoing basis for them.
Yeah, and we were talking off camera, Luke, you really feel that your secret sauce, if you will, you've got the software, you've got the technology, but it's that support kind of behind the technology that is really helping to fuel growth.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. So one of the, I think, key elements of our business is that we staff our customer success team and support teams with people who have direct experience working as environmental consultants. This is actually my background. Before I was thinking about really starting a company, I was working as an environmental professional. And I truly believe we bring the next generation of technology to this space, but then we do layer that in with just an elite team of environmental specialists who work really closely and carefully with our customers to ensure that not only is the software doing what they need it to do, but that they're supported along the way, which I think is it's really bared out actually and shown its value not only in our customer acquisition, but once our customers get in the encampment with us and start using our software, they basically stick around and they often grow. So we have really strong net retention across the customer base. And I think that really is because of the people that we have supporting the customers.
Yeah, and your customers are big time players. You started out and still have, I think, some smaller mom and pop customers, but you're dealing with some of the biggest companies in the world.
That's correct. Yeah, we have customers all the way from some local ag retailers in Kentucky that I drove to myself and got some deals done early on, all the way up into the Fortune 50 at this point, have numerous Fortune 50 customers.
Hey, Luke, talk about what's next. 800% revenue growth in 2020. You raised $12 million in a Series B round you closed on earlier this year. 60 plus employees. Where do you see things going that you're really on a growth trajectory?
Yeah, it's been a ride for sure, and we're really grateful for all the growth that we've experienced. At this point for this year, our growth really hasn't been slowing down. We're over 400% year-over-year growth for this year, and if you kind of think about the numbers, it gets harder to continue growing faster the bigger you get. So the growth has really continued, and we're projecting to end the year at over 500%. Really, as I'm looking to 2022, 2023, for us, it's expanding our customer base, continuing to move up market and serving these really large enterprises to help them manage their environmental compliance. And it's really building out additional reporting capabilities from our system. There are a lot of regulations. We've started with a targeted segment, and there's a logical progression along our product roadmap to really eventually become the operating system for the entire space is our ultimate goal. So a lot of work ahead. We'll be hiring more engineers, more salespeople, more customer success pretty much across the board. Okay,
I know you're a native Hoosier and a big supporter of the Indianapolis tech scene, and you're glad you're growing the Indiana tech scene, growing it here. Luke Jacobs, the CEO, co-founder at InCamp, congratulations, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gary.
All right.
See ya.
Well, a historic jail with an artsy flair. There is such a building in Indiana. It could be in danger of the wrecking ball. Mary Rachel Redmond has details in this week's Endangered Indiana series. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. Well, in this week's Endangered Indiana series, we revisit one of Indiana's oldest jails, designed by one of the state's most celebrated architects. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond joins us now in studio with more. Mary Rachel.
That's right, Gary. The former Tipton County Jail and Sheriff's residence turned 126 years old this year, and it's still standing. Not only the structure, but as a repeat offender on Indiana Landmark's 10 Most Endangered list. And that celebrated architect you mentioned is Adolph Shearer, the same guy that designed Indiana State Capitol building and a host of other famous Hoosier mainstays around the turn of the century, including the Tipton County Jail and Sheriff's residence.
Concrete floors, steel beds, and bars. It wouldn't leave you with the warm and fuzzies. Kind of scary, in fact.
Not exactly the words you'd think someone might use to describe a building they're hoping to save. But the Tipton County Jail and Sheriff's residence is steeped in history. A landmark in a town starved for architectural ties to its past.
We have so few buildings here left in our county that are actually of historical significance.
It was the last operating sheriff's residence and jail in the state of Indiana.
But that historic run came to an end earlier this year.
They made the decision to build a new jail several years ago, and that construction just completed, and they moved all the prisoners from this structure into the new jail. So this one became vacant.
And Tipton residents are determined to save it.
It's a beautiful structure. Much of the original woodwork is still intact, with a beautiful fireplace, wood mantle still there. There are some original electric fixtures.
This is the upstairs of the sheriff's residence.
At the end of the 19th century, several state governments, especially in the Midwest, required sheriffs to live next door to the county jail.
And in the case of Tipton County, the sheriff's family residence was actually attached to the jail. When this residence opened in 1895, it was then lived in all the way to 2006.
It tells us what life was like in the 1890s and the early 1900s. Once treasures like that are gone, they're gone forever. It would be too expensive to try to reproduce a building like this.
I'd like to see it turned into something that the community can come through, maybe take part in some type of retail experience that also exposes them to a display of our past. We all can learn from what's taken place in our history and where we came from. That's my hope, is how we can incorporate it.
A feasibility study released in October estimates a rehab of the site would cost upwards of $2 million. And according to that study, the most expensive rehab costs would come from all new electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. But perhaps the biggest win, it was found to be more expensive to tear it down rather than restore this historic landmark. But no final decisions have been made on the future of the jail. One notable expense not accounted for, though, is the uptick in cost of building materials due to the current supply chain crisis you mentioned at the top of the show. Gary?
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Also making headlines around Indiana this week. In northern Indiana, a South Bend-based startup focused on reducing food waste has closed on a more than $1 million pre-seed round of funding. Flow Waste uses machine learning to determine how much food gets thrown away. The company has signed agreements to launch the platform at more than 100 locations with pilot customers over the next 9 months. And fans of Huber Orchard, Winery, and Vineyards in Clark County raising their glasses to the Huber family for being awarded the state's highest tourism honor. The Indiana Destination Development Corporation presenting the Hubers with the Will Cook Indiana Tourism Leadership Award at this year's Hoosier Hospitality Awards event. Hubers is the state's largest wine grape producer and a very popular destination with more than 700,000 annual visitors. Well, big things are happening at the world's largest children's museum. Barbie extending her stay. The new Dinosphere opens soon. Much more with the new CEO. Well, she is the woman in charge of the world's largest children's museum. The new president and CEO of the museum, Jennifer Pace Robinson, is a 29-year veteran of the museum and was recently named one of IBJ's Women of Influence. I'm pleased to be joined by Jennifer. She shares her vision for the museum. Jennifer, congratulations on the new role and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, you have been at the museum for a long time, almost 3 decades. You have seen a lot. You've seen the institution evolve and change and grow. As you think back on the past 29 plus years, what are your thoughts for the next number of years, and how do you see that your experiences shaping your vision for the museum?
Right. So the first thing that always comes to mind is let's do more. Let's do more of the same. We have walked in some really wonderful footsteps of previous leaders. The vision of one of our first leaders, Mrs. Compton, to create this building that we're in now and these huge 10,000 square foot galleries. And so I really see my role to capitalize on the work that has come before and just keep pushing it forward. So you'll see lots of engaging activities for preschoolers, for families. We're going to be a tourist destination to come during the holiday season, during spring break. We're going to continue our international relationships and make more international relationships, because that really allows us to bring the world to Indianapolis through our Take Me There exhibits. And on the horizon, we've got some really big dinosaur bones.
Yeah. Well, in your roles at the museum, you've really grown up there, literally an interpreter, an exhibit manager. You were the lead originally on Dinosphere, and that's going through another iteration. So some of those tried and true exhibits are going to remain.
Right, and that's so important to our business, that we know, for example, with dinosaurs, almost 90% of the people who walk through our doors go into the Dinosphere exhibit. And when we started that experience, we did so much market study of what do kids want to see when they walk in the door? And dinosaurs is right in there near the top. And so creating that Cretaceous world was amazing. Working with the advisors, we've been digging for the last 5 years on a top secret site out in Wyoming called the Jurassic Mile. And so that's what we're doing next. We're going to be repurposing the space so you feel like you're traveling back in time to the Jurassic world, and you're going to be encountering the giant specimens that come out of that space. Yeah. So a lot of very cool things. And things are different now. You know, when I project managed the original opening in 2004, technology has come so far. So that confluence of amazing real objects, but also the backdrops and the sound and the light that you can use now really will help people feel like they're somewhere new. Yeah, Jennifer, obviously COVID has impacted all of our lives, business, industry, you name the segment of the economy. How has it impacted the museum world, if you will, especially going forward? Has it changed the way you're going to be doing business? Right. So a couple of pretty amazing things have come out of what has been a very hard time for lots of institutions. But the sense of community and sharing our successes and our wins and what hasn't worked has really kind of gelled the field as a community in kind of a really great way. And going forward, we're really talking about the mix of the virtual and the on-site. And one thing that I found out is it takes just as many people to do the virtual as it does to do the on-site. And so making sure that we have that right mix, because we were able to reach families in England and schools in Kentucky. And let's keep that momentum going, but make sure that we look at all the resources we have available and that we reserve enough for those in-person visitors who are starting to come back again. Jennifer Pace Robinson, the new CEO at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. Jennifer, thanks so much. You've got a lot of energy, and I know a lot of great ideas. Look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much. All right. Ahead in our next half hour, what started as a push to get people to eat more fresh fruits and veggies has spun into a global business for an Indianapolis South Sider, Lori Taylor. She shares the journey of the produce moms. Also coming up, a new resource for kids in Muncie struggling in school. We'll explain how City Connects could be a key driver in bridging the achievement gap. Well, millions of potatoes in the U.S. will now have an Indiana Moms logo front and center. Indianapolis-based company The Produce Moms has baked up a business deal with Walmart. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has more. Kylie.
Thank you, Gerry. We all know fresh produce is good for our health, and the Produce Moms, founded by an indie mom, is on a mission to put more fruits and vegetables on every table. Hoosiers may be familiar with the small company. In Indiana, the branded products are already sold at Target, Kroger, and Meijer. And now a spudtacular partnership means potatoes at Walmart will soon have the Produce Moms branding. Founder and Chief Executive Officer Lori Taylor joins me now to tell us more. Welcome to the show, Lori.
Thank you, Kylie. It's great to be here.
Well, we'll talk about your newest business deal in just a minute, but first, give us an idea how the Produce Moms got its start.
Thank you. You know, it started very grassroots, and we owe a debt of gratitude to everyone here in Indianapolis that helped us start. The Produce Moms started as a very basic WordPress blog in 2012 when I was marketing manager at Indianapolis Fruit Company. In 2015, I had the opportunity to buy the brand and buy the blog from my former employer. And so that's when I took my entrepreneurial leap, and my team and I have been building the Produce Moms ever since. And, you know, we've certainly grown into quite, you know, the emerging brand in agriculture and the grocery retail industry. And again, thank you so much to everyone in Indiana who has been a big part of that. We are the internet's #1 destination for all things fruits and vegetables. So we're very proud of that at the Produce Moms.
All right, let's talk about your most recent success. The Produce Moms recently inked a deal, your first big business deal in the vegetable category for potatoes. So tell us about the new potato deal.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, we've been working with Wada Farms as one of our brand partners through our Produce Mom sponsorship programs for the last 4 years. Wada Farms is from Idaho. They're one of the largest potato growers in the world and a true leader in American agriculture. So they approached us last year with the idea and opportunity to co-brand or even just white label in a licensed branded deal, bring forward the Produce Moms brand on package with their individual Easy Baker russet potatoes. Those potatoes are sold nationwide, coast to coast at Walmart. They are on shelf now at almost 40% of all of America's Walmarts, and we are expecting expansion very soon to additional retailers and, of course, an expanded footprint with Walmart stores as well.
Okay, and on those potatoes, on the logo, there's a QR code that shoppers can scan. And that really gets at the heart of your mission, which you say is to be an education hub. Can you talk just a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah, you know, I really believe, you know, as we strive forward with our quest to get more fruits and vegetables on every table, be that catalyst at the Produce Moms, I do believe it starts with education. People need to know how to select, store, and serve their fruits and vegetables as a means to increase consumption in volume and variety. Furthermore, people want to know where their food is from. They want to understand that supply chain and feel closer to the producers and the farmers. So through that QR code that appears on our licensed potatoes that are on shelf now at Walmart, you're going to be able to actually go right to the field in Idaho and you know, watch a video on how these potatoes are grown and harvested and shipped to the grocery store. And we also have created a bunch of educational content on recipe inspiration, as well as, you know, fun activities that the children can do. And we've even worked with our in-house team of educators at the Produce Moms to make sure that all of our activity sheets and lesson plan ideas do meet national academic standards. So very proud of that.
And you were recently also named to the Forbes Next 1000, which recognizes small business owners who are disruptors in their industry. So can you explain how the Produce Moms is disrupting the produce industry?
Yeah, I mean, most of the companies we work with are at least 50 years old, if not approaching their centennial year of operation. American agriculture is really the foundation of industry, and agriculture worldwide is that. It's usually the first industry established in every single corner of this globe. So we have brought a very relevant way for the farmers to tell their messaging, and we have pushed on the supply chain by using that grassroots power that we have as one of the leading communities of moms on the internet we have used that grassroots power to push on the supply chain to be more transparent about the practices. So it's been a very positive experience for all of our stakeholders, and we've really helped serve as that bridge. Through the Produce Moms, we are connecting the end consumer, the households, directly to the farmers.
And just a couple seconds left. You've done some great things locally. You got salad bars in every single IPS school. Just give us a quick snapshot of your global presence.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud to represent the United States right now as the board member for Global Women Fresh. Global Women Fresh is our industry's leading global trade organization and non-for-profit that is focused on elevating women through the fresh produce industry. In many parts of the world, agriculture is the only industry that exists where a woman can earn a professional income, and to hold the United States seat in any global arena is a great responsibility and privilege. So I very much enjoy working with my colleagues at the international level to make sure that we are fostering great strategies and opportunities to elevate women through agriculture around the world.
Well, Lori, congratulations on your successes. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Gerry, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Students who struggle in the classroom, are they getting enough to eat? Do they have stable housing and access to health care? What's going on at home may, in fact, play a direct role in how they perform in school. That's why Muncie Community Schools is partnering with Marian University to launch City Connects. Now, it is a program that identifies students who struggle outside the classroom and then really links them with community support agencies. City Connects has proven to be a success in Massachusetts, where dropout rates were cut in half, achievement gaps narrowed, and kids were far less likely to cut class or call in sick. For more on City Connects, I'm pleased to be joined by Muncie Community Schools Chief Communications Officer Andy Klotz and Marian University's K-12 Center for Vibrant Schools Executive Director Jessica Morales-Most. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Jessica, I want to start with you. The City Connects program is part of a national program. I mentioned Massachusetts. I think it started at Boston College. But give us a thumbnail description of the City Connects program and really what it's all about.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. So City Connects, as you said, based out of Boston College, started about 20 years ago in the Northeast region. And now we have, through a partnership with Boston College, have brought City Connects to the Midwest in the single largest expansion effort ever for the program, which is really exciting. We at Marian University and the Center for Vibrant Schools have launched a pilot program with 34 schools in the state of Indiana, in Gerry, South Bend, Muncie, and Indianapolis. And through the City Connects practice, it's an evidence-based practice that ensures every single student in a school, no matter what kind of school it is, no matter what kind of students they serve, get the support they need. It's an evidence-based strategy that allows a clear, organized approach to ensuring student support is met for every single student. So it really becomes a hub of student support in your school by allowing out-of-school factors to be addressed for that of student success. So as you were saying before, there's a lot that students go through outside the classroom that impacts their success inside the classroom. Yeah. And thus this practice allows to bring all that together.
Very good. Andy, talk about why Muncie Schools was very interested in this. This is a program, and we'll get with Jessica in a moment on some of the outcomes seen in other places. But what's the need there, the demand for this type of program?
Well, of course, now is a rough time for education in general and for students who have additional worries on top of just learning in the classroom. And so this program comes along at a great time for us because this allows us to have a site coordinator currently in 4 of our schools and to be 5 by the end of the school year that can actually focus on needs of each student in that school and identify what their needs are beyond just academic help, beyond tutoring and where they may be having difficulties in their studies. This goes beyond that and really examines what else is going on. Maybe they have a health condition that has gone undetected, or there's something in their home that is keeping them from excelling in the classroom. And now we have somebody dedicated to identifying those situations and doing something about it.
Yeah, and as we were talking off camera a moment ago, this really does extend beyond the school into the community. I know the city of Muncie is a partner in this whole process, Ball State to an extent as well. So this is really a community connects, a community initiative.
It absolutely is in our community. And we have tremendous partners, tremendous support throughout Muncie for our school system. But this is just another way, because the city helped fund these positions, these site coordinator positions that we have in 4 of our schools, 5 of our schools, and before long, thanks to Ball State. So we couldn't be more grateful for those. And I know that our site coordinators have been working hard since the start of the school year to identify the services that certain students need.
Yeah. Jessica, talk about some of the metrics, some of the performance of the City Connects program in Massachusetts, and what some of the outcomes have been.
Absolutely. So in their recent report that's come out through the impact and the data that's been researched through City Connects, dropout rates have been cut by 50%, which is absolutely demonstrable for students. And then you think about absenteeism, making sure students are in their chairs in class every single day, because being more connected to your students and what they go through outside the classroom makes the student, his or herself, feel more connected to what's going on inside the classroom. So they want to come to school. So it improves absenteeism. One of the greatest notes is that it improves satisfaction and happiness amongst faculty, staff within your schools, because they too feel that they're having a greater impact on their students every single day, because they see not just the academic improvement, but the social, emotional, behavior improvements as well.
Yeah, very quick. Only have about 20 seconds left, Jessica, but Marion on so many levels has been reaching out and extending its footprint on a statewide basis. As you look at this program, do you see this as something, as a pilot program, as becoming an annual program or a more sustainable program over time?
Absolutely. This is not just a program that's going to be around for 1 to 2 years. This is something that's going to sustain in perpetuity. And we want to see this in every school in the Midwest and across the nation, too. So this is just the beginning.
Very good. Jessica Morales-Moss, the Executive Director, K-12 Center for Vibrant Schools at Marion University. Andy Klotz from Muncie Schools. Interesting program. We look forward to watching the progress going forward. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Well, Dr. Jerome Adams, a key and very visible public health official during the height of the COVID-19 crisis. He's my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast. Adams served as the nation's 20th U.S. Surgeon General in the Trump administration during the pandemic. Before that, piloted Indiana public health initiatives as state health commissioner for 3 years. He grew up on a farm in rural Maryland, in Amish country, where he learned some important life lessons.
One of my best friends growing up was a little Amish boy named Jacob, who lived on the other side of the fence from us. And so what's interesting about that is I very early on in life grew up realizing that people lived differently than I did. And it encouraged me to have a tolerance for different people, different lifestyles, different cultures. But I grew up on a old farm. Interestingly enough, as Surgeon General, I tell people the irony is that I grew up on an old tobacco farm and made money working in the tobacco fields. That it is ironic, but it's also something that I took with me to Washington, D.C. I don't shame people because I understand that people make the decisions that they feel they have to make to support their families and their livelihoods. And it's easy to demonize someone for working in a coal mine, or demonize someone for saying they want to go back to work in the midst of a pandemic. But the fact is that you do what you have to do to put food on the table and to put clothes on your back. And that's something I learned very early on, even as a kid with asthma who was very much allergic to tobacco. It sent me to the hospital several times, but I did what I had to do to earn money and contribute to the family. And so when I came to Indiana, interestingly enough, I felt an affinity for a lot of the folks here, because once you get outside of Indianapolis, Indiana gets pretty rural pretty quick. And it was a lot like where I grew up. When we think back to the Scott County HIV outbreak that we had, that I dealt with when I was state health commissioner. Driving down the Scott County, that wasn't foreign to me. That was just like the area where I grew up. And I was able to relate to those folks. They were able to relate to me. And that's why we were able to get a syringe service program over the finish line and become a model for the rest of the country. So I think, the Lord works in mysterious ways, but I think that my upbringing, as challenging as it was at times, prepared me for a lot of the moments and a lot of the crises that I've had to deal with as a doctor and as a public health professional.
Much more with Dr. Jerome Adams on the next Inside Indiana Business podcast, the Business and Beyond podcast. To check it out, go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com and click on the subscribe tab. Well, the Fort Wayne Comets are back on the ice, shooting to bring home another championship. Details when we come back inside Indiana Sports. Well, the resumption of hockey season means a return to the ice for one of the top minor league franchises in America, celebrating its 70th season, and right here in Indiana. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill.
Gary, thanks. And that franchise will be the Fort Wayne Comets, Comets with a capital K, who are back as the reigning East Coast Hockey League champions, toiling on the ice of the historic Allen County War Memorial Coliseum. And joining us today to talk Comets hockey, along with the Interstate 69 rivalry with the Indy Fuel, is the voice of the Comets, Shane Albarani. Shane, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
24 years with the franchise, 8 years as the voice of the Comets. Just talk a little bit about hockey. You know, Fort Wayne is a hockey town, and they've always been a Comets town for all these 70 years.
Yeah. No, it's quite remarkable. The Comets are the second oldest minor league hockey franchise in North America. Only the Hershey Bears of the AHL has got a few years on us. And what's also more remarkable is that we've had the same owners for 32 years. And that's kind of unheard of. So I think that also plays into the loyalty of the fans. You're not going to have a new owner. Things aren't going to change, and they really do take care of their fans. And that's why people keep on coming back. And plus, like you mentioned, we won a championship, so we're a winning franchise as well.
Well, and 10 overall titles, and like so many minor leagues, whether it's baseball, hockey, transitioning from leagues, started out with the International Hockey League, the United Hockey League, the Central Hockey League, and now in the ECHL, where the team won the Kelly Cup this past season.
Yeah, you're missing two other ones. They got the UHL, and the IHL was reformed a few years later, so managed to be successful through all these leagues. And back in the old IHL, it was AAA hockey, was one step below the NHL, and now we went back to AA about 25 years ago. So even to make that transition as far as talent level wise, it's also remarkable because it actually has gotten more popular. It seems like year in and year out, and even with the pandemic, we had limited capacity last year for the regular season, but as soon as we were able to go back to full capacity, we had the place packed, 10,500 people for the finals. So the Comets are so embedded in Fort Wayne. It is Fort Wayne, and that is kind of the reason why also the Comets played, because a lot of teams in the ECHL didn't play. We only had 14 teams, and the Comets said, you know what, this community wants us to play, so we're going to play. And we're glad we did.
Yeah, and talk about the business of hockey weathering that COVID storm, and so many franchises, and as you said, some of them didn't even perform last year, but it's a real testament to the Fort Wayne ownership that they persevered through all of that.
Yeah, no, it really was. It came down to the final hours of letting the league know whether we were going to play or not, and it really came down to the fans wanted us to play, our sponsors wanted us to play, and that was it. And plus, it was going to be 70 years the following year, which we're celebrating now. And there has been so many ups and downs through 70 years, and the Comets never missed a season, and we weren't going to let this stop us. So that's kind of another reason why we played.
Obviously, we're based here in Indianapolis, Shane, but we have the Indy Fuel here performing in the Farmers Coliseum at the State Fairgrounds. Do we have an I-69 rivalry with the Fuel and the Comets?
Oh, yes, indeed we do. It goes back, a long, long time. It hasn't always been the Fuel. It's been the ice. It's been a few other things. But you know what? As long as there was a Fort Wayne team playing an Indy team, there's always going to be a rivalry. And, I look forward to going down to the Fairgrounds Coliseum. It's a place where I went to many times when I was a kid. I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, and we would make that trip as fans and a family so many times. So it's great memories walking into that building.
Shane, we got about 30 seconds left. So fill us in. Why is it Comets with a K?
Well, when the team first formed, a man by the name of Ernie Berg started the team, and to honor his wife, Catherine, he chose a K.
And there you have it.
There you have it.
There you have it. Well, Shane Albarani, the voice of the Fort Wayne Comets, we certainly appreciate you coming on the show. Best of luck. I know the team's off to a good start, and we look forward to seeing you against the Fuel, that I-69 rivalry, Wednesday, November 17th. Thanks, Shane.
We will be there.
Yeah, all right. Gerry, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, up next, how apartment complexes are rolling out the red carpet for pet owners. Our partners at IBJ looking into that and a lot more. We'll see what they've uncovered when we come back. Well, it is the dawn of a new era for Indiana's most well-known business news brands. As you may know, Inside Indiana Business recently became a new division under the IBJ Media umbrella. And today we begin a new journey together, bringing you the most up-to-date and compelling business news from around the state. For a look ahead at what is ahead in this week's IBJ, pleased to be joined by editor Leslie Weidenbender. Leslie, of course, welcome to the show. Looking forward to this segment.
Absolutely.
Some interesting stories in the paper this week, and I love it. Giving Doghouse a new meaning. And you're talking about apartment owners who are really catering to dog owners.
Absolutely. Apartment developers can't get away anymore with these difficult policies that make it harder for pet owners to rent an apartment. And in fact, they've got to go the extra mile to create new amenities for pet owners.
So this really is a business decision, these apartments, because millennials, the stats show that they're pet owners.
So 90 million households in the U.S. have a pet. That was before the pandemic, and we all know that there are lots more pets now, and a third of those are millennials. And the Indy Downtown estimates that in the city core, 60-some% of renters have pets.
That is interesting. Another hot topic, a talker, I think, in the paper this week will be the whole office versus remote debate that continues and will continue. What are you finding out?
Well, it's really interesting to see what's happening. So I think there's some 60% of white-collar workers say they're still working remotely. But companies are making different decisions. We recently saw that Greenlight Guru actually doubled down. They expanded their offices downtown. But what they've said is they're going to go with a hybrid situation, but they wanted to have a great space for people to still collaborate. They thought that was important. Another company here in town, another software company, Decimal, they've decided to eliminate their office altogether. So I think you're seeing that companies are still just trying to find their way. And Susan Orr's got a great story in IBJ about that.
That's good. And here's one I know that people will be talking about, and that's vape shops selling this hemp derivative, right, that's being termed marijuana light.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago we were writing about what might happen in the marijuana debate, and our reporter Emily Ketterer came across the fact that this derivative, it's called Delta 8, is being sold in all kinds of products, gummies and all kinds of things. You can get it anywhere, and so far state officials don't seem to want to crack down on it. It was really made legal by the law a few years ago that allowed hemp products to be legal. And so, the state officials seem to be leaving it. Lots of states are writing laws to ban it, but not Indiana so far.
Yeah, I'm going off script here a little bit, but you're very connected politically. Do you anticipate the legislature is going to be dealing with more of these marijuana kind of related issues going forward?
Yeah, no doubt. I think the House in particular will probably be doing a lot of debating this year about marijuana legislation. Now, I'm not sure where it could go in the Senate. I don't know that this is the year when it could actually become law, but I think you're going to see a lot of debate.
Yeah. Hey, one more. I know you've got an environmental story in the paper this week that should probably raise a few eyebrows.
Absolutely. On East Washington Street for decades, there's been this, they called it Black Mountain, a foundry sand, just a hill. Now, a lot of that was moved over and used as fill at the criminal justice campus. but that has left some environmental problems, and our reporter Leslie Bonilla has details about what's going to happen with that.
Great. Lots of great stuff in the paper this week. Leslie Weidenbender, great to have you on the show. Look forward to next week.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, this week, a Georgia-based hotel development firm detailed plans to take over a project near the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that has seen long delays. Hotel Equities told the Speedway Town Council it hopes to resume construction on the Wilshaw Hotel next spring. Hotel Equities says it plans to work with the current developer, Loftus Robinson, and other stakeholders to assume development and management responsibilities. The developer says it plans to maintain the project's footprint, which features a 5-story, 127-room hotel under the Hilton Tapestry brand. Plans to complete the project in the first quarter of 2023. Our partners at IBJ report Loftus Robinson paused construction in 2019 amid financial difficulties. And I'll be right back after this. Stay with us. Coming up next week, we will take you to Northwest Indiana and introduce you to the entrepreneur, the owner of what is billed as the world's largest gourmet popcorn store. He also has expansion plans far beyond Northwest Indiana. Also, our Endangered Indiana series continues with a visit to Marion. We'll have those stories and a lot more coming up next week. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gerry Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.